a quick rundown of Cineverse. Over to you, Anna. You're on mute.
Thank you. So my name is Anna Guzman, and I'm a Director of Product Management and also currently the chair of the BCE group, so under GSMA. And with me today is Elira Closey, who works for Vodafone Roaming Services, and she's very involved in the BCE development. And John Pavluk from Swisscom, and with both of them, I would be talking about their experiences with BCE development. So you probably know both of them quite well and have encountered them at WOS and IDS meetings. So yeah, the idea is obviously to interview both of them, both John and Elira, to find out how they have been dealing with BCE, because BCE has been underway for more than 4 years now, and I'm just lucky enough to have stepped in, and now I'm leading this major development. And there's no doubt in my mind that BCE will get foothold in 2021 for the simple reason that there are no alternatives, and if operators want to launch new services, and we can safely assume that they would want that, especially after this pandemic. But so BCE also is a standard, which means that operators have something to fall back to and do not have to exchange different formats between each other. And considering that TAP is not being developed anymore and BCE is the only alternative to go forward, it's definitely a safe assumption that it will get more and more popular in 2021. So having worked with BCE for some years now, I personally think it's quite easy to implement. I mean, it's not rocket science. And if operators are able to identify M2M traffic or mobile IoT traffic, then they already have come a long way. Of course, one of the other prerequisites is that operators have already separated wholesale billing with subscriber billing. So because that's kind of important, BCE is a process for wholesale only, it's not for subscriber billing. So yeah, in 2021, we will most likely see more and more operators going ahead with BCE. And yeah, I will just maybe share a presentation, which I'll run in the background, so that you know what we are talking about. So I will probably start with why was this new standard needed? What was wrong with TAP? We know TAP has been successful for 3 decades almost, so why not just develop it more? But yeah, of course, there is a lot of data roaming happening, and some of the sessions are so low that it's not even worth including them in TAP. But if you do it in BCE and aggregate it, that would definitely be some potential. We see some new technologies evolving, for example, mobile IoT and BIoT, 5G VOLTE, VOLTE. TAP is quite rigid and complicated to update. We already today have charging models that cannot be supported in TAP. And for most operators, wholesale and retail are already decoupled. So that leads to reduced profitability in roaming, especially these days. We can't really rely on humans roaming a lot, so you need devices. There was a need for automation, obviously, because any standard implies automation. And a solution was needed for both future roaming and interwork. So even though I'm very attached to TAP, I basically grew up with it, I think it's time to move to something else, something new. That's why I also volunteered to become the chair of this group, because I think it's exciting. It's definitely something we will face next year. I was hoping it would already happen this year, but there is a slight delay, obviously. So yeah, if any of you on the call can identify themselves with any of these bubbles here, like you have a lot of mobile IoT traffic on your network, you can easily identify M2M traffic. You're rolling out 5G roaming and want to charge more for it. You've already decoupled wholesale and retail billing, and you also wonder how to bill for millions of IoT devices that are accessing your network. Then it's definitely BCE you should look into. Okay, but now let's take a break from the slides and my first question to both John and Elira would be, what was the key driver for your company to move forward with BC? Maybe Elira, you start.
Yes, Hannah, thank you. So you mentioned some of the drivers. To be honest, for example, with IoT, we have seen all in the industry, not just us, have seen how the amount of records that need to be exchanged has exploded, but for a very little volume. And we think it's time to try and take at least the IoT part out of TAP and use aggregation as per BCE. This brings me also to the commercial models. So we want to be able to apply much more various commercial models than is possible on TAP. This doesn't only touch on the IoT traffic, but also we want to be prepared for the upcoming 5G standalone technology. And we know that network slicing will be a factor there. And we know that as it is with TAP, we can't really apply any new commercial models there. So it's got to be BCE. We have to be prepared for that. These were our main drivers.
Okay, how about you, John?
Yeah, I think Elira hit all the key topics there. Definitely trying to monetize these low volume M2M sessions and appropriately charge them, and then minimize, let's say, the counterparty financial risk, the daily reconciliations at both a value and a volume level help to quickly identify mismatches. And also BCE lets me include essentially all the elements of a discount agreement in the monthly reconciliations, monthly settlements, so I don't have to wait 12 months to do the financial settlement in a reconciliation.
Okay, makes sense. So obviously, BC and TAP will coexist for many years to come. Would not really try to guess, but I think if you just think about NRTRD and that we are still sending HUR reports, then get the picture at least. So they will coexist for a period of time, but the options to switch to BCE is to launch it for new services only, the services that I mentioned with on the slide with the bubbles, or you can also move all your packet switch data from BCE and then just leave circuit switch in the tab. Because let's face it, also not all of your partners will be BCE capable for a certain amount of time. They will need to see the relevant business case to move forward with that. But in general, as I mentioned, M2M and mobile IoT traffic that can be differentiated will be then maybe built using different processes, so BCE, for example. And then you can even decide which traffic goes where. Okay, which then brings me to my next question. John, how long do you think it will be before we see BCE in action, in production? I know that Swisscom is already live, but you need some partners to roam with. So what's your opinion about that?
Yeah, I'll be very honest, and it's taken, also it's going to take years, approaching a decade, to roll out BCE to the majority of our partners worldwide. I just this morning looked up, we've had LTE roaming for 6 years now, and we've got 400 of our 600 partners on LTE roaming now. So it takes time. But key for us is that, or key for me is that in the next, let's say 18 to 24 months, I'd like to roll out BC with the majority of my, let's say, my neighboring countries and primary partners in Europe and primary partners worldwide, at least for a subset of the important services. So primarily starting with LTE-M and NB-IoT, and then in time extending that out to VOLTE and 5G. But it's going to be a long process, and TAP and BC are going to definitely coexist for many months or many years to come. Positive is I got lots of good feedback from partners that are actually interested in BC and are interested in starting up with BC early next year. So I think that was very good feedback I got from the other sessions we had in the WAS 12.
Yeah, that's exactly the point, because obviously you as an operator have the leverage to go out and tell partners that this is what you want to do. And then obviously whoever is ready or actually would want to monetize that traffic, then they can start looking into it. Because as I said, it's in the end not that complicated. But Elira, what about Vodafone? Can you give any timelines for your organization about BC?
So we would also definitely like to start having our first live agreements next year. Again, for some type of traffic. So for us, narrowband IoT, for example, is key because also of the commercial models and the settlement that John explained before. And then we'll take it from there and then try to put more services as we go and as we have more partners.
Yeah, hopefully it will kind of start after New Year or no, New Year, so probably.
Well, preparations anyhow need to start beforehand. No? In order to have a live, you have to have all the testing, and the operator themselves needs to prepare. So,
and you know more better than anyone that it is a lot of preparation goes into it, also to just develop this thing, because everyone has an opinion how it should look like, which is also okay, and that's how it should be. But in the end, we need to have a standard that is good enough for everyone to use. So. Having said that, so additional requirements are coming in even to the standards. So we froze the first version, but we already are working on the second release because obviously there are things that need to be considered. So well, how about voice and SMS inclusion? Should interconnect be added to BCE? Number of days threshold, that's being discussed in WSOLU. Included threshold charging model, combining multiple PA27 charging models. 5G standalone roaming is getting closer. So we can actually start planning for that once we have a bit more experience or requirements, what's needed. And in the end, are we really getting the requirements of all operators? The virtual sessions we are having, the good part of it is that we actually get more participants than in the face-to-face meetings. But if you want to be active in BCE, you will need to make sure that we do consider your requirements because it's important to have the standards as user-friendly or that every operator can basically use it. So yeah, BCE standard is actually ready to be used. So operators can get started. But as we mentioned, there will be still 2 processes running. So Elira, what challenges, now that you have some experience, what challenges are you finding in managing 2 distinct processes, so TAP and BCE?
I think the key challenge is that there are already the existing processes that are based on basically a lifetime of TAP. And now those processes need to be expanded in order to integrate BCE. But you cannot really reinvent the wheel from the beginning. You need to expand the processes that you already have. For example, you have your reporting that was always based on TAP. Now you have to include BCE there. The other challenge that I see that we all are going to have is the migration of existing services from TAP to BCE, which will happen piecemeal. So it's not going to be all at the same time and not all with all partners. So that is the second thing where you have to maintain both flows and at the same time try piece by piece to get part of your traffic out of TAP and into BC.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say that this is like just an initial effort where you have to see how to get that?
Yes, absolutely. But you need to have processes in place so that you can maintain this with different partners and for different types of services, because now you can be doing, so BC is very flexible. You can be, you can have a BCE agreement for some services with one partner, but then maybe for different services with another partner.
Or you can even have TAP and BCE with the same partner.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So
like the human data traffic, voice and SMS in TAP, and then all the Internet of Things traffic in BCE. Yeah, but it's either that or just, well, don't bother monetizing the traffic. That's how I see it in the
well, I think the problem is creating a process and having it in place. Then, of course, you are going to use that process for all of your migrations.
Yeah, so it is probably safe to say that once you have checked internally how difficult is it, how do you actually get the data for BCE, and once you have all that in place, any additional roaming partner will be easier to add. So it's a one-time effort, which then may be fine-tuned along the way, but to start with, that's the effort you have to put, right? What do you think, John? What's your experience with this?
Very similar to what Elira was saying. I separated maybe in different categories. Like I'm working in the wholesale team, and we decided within Swisscom that the roaming traffic is either in TAP or it's in BCE, but it's not in both places. So we got everything we need for TAP. Just like Lear said, we need new processes, and specifically for my job, I need new reports for BCE, so I can actually monitor and track things and put it inside tools for the BCE traffic. So that's happening in the background. On the finance side for the settlement, because we've taken the approach of working with Cineverse as a DCH, the invoicing and stuff, there's no big changes on the finance side. Invoices flow to OneClear, settled over there, standard process, just a new service, voice, IoT, SMS, and now BCE. On the IT side, I made a couple of mistakes and slowed down the rollout a little bit, but once we got the information in the right place, it actually worked. And I think the other key thing there that I didn't mention in the past was, and I thought about the last few days, is that the great thing about doing BCE is it's an internal project, and as our company ages and new people come in, there's a great opportunity to transfer knowledge because everybody's learning it all at the same time. New acronyms, new everything, but everybody's got to get up on board and learn it. So it's a great opportunity to build internal networks and transfer knowledge internally.
Yeah, because it is a new thing and a new process, and either you are on board with and you want to learn new things and try and implement them, or you're comfortable in the world of TAP, for example, which is also fine. But as I said, it's probably not gonna work for all the new services. So that's good. Thank you for that. So I think maybe now I showed 2 slides because, like with everything, there are 2 ways of approaching BCE. You can choose to do it yourself, or you can choose to utilize an agent, like John mentioned that the Cineverse is doing that for them. So on this slide, you see a really rough draft of what is needed to make that work if you do it in-house. So you will have some usage SGW data, which you run through mediation to separate the roaming traffic. And then you decide based on certain criteria, whether it's IMSI ranges, APNs, RAT types, what traffic goes to TAP, where you then create the TAP in ASN1 format, apply rating, send it to your agent, who potentially would send it to another agent, and then the roaming partner will get the file. Anytime along the way, RAP files can be generated. So that's the TAP flow. Then you have to take care of the BCE flow, which it probably will be a parallel process with different people, maybe even being involved if it's a big company, where you generate some aggregated reports, UDR, USR, in XML format. So it's just data aggregated by a criteria that you agree with your roaming partner. Then you for sure will have to send BSR, which is billing statement report input to the invoice. And that document already for sure contains rating. There could be some that are containing charges here as well, but BSR for sure will, which you will then send to your partner for reconciliation before you actually issue the charging document, because BCE is a lot more about reconciliation than TAP is. So once you issue the invoice, you know it will be really correct and it can be settled without any delays and disputes and so on. So yeah, so that's the in-house process. But then you have obviously the agent approach. And in this case, you're here, the serving party, for example, it's just these 3 boxes you have to consider and see where you fit. So some of our customers would outsource the whole TAP creation to us. So if they do that, then they can also just include the BCE traffic in that and then tell the agent, in this case, what should go to TAP and what should go to BCE. Whatever they agree, how they do that, regular CSV files or whatever. Then if they create their own TAP out files, there's no change to that process. They'll just continue sending out the TAP out files, which are then validated and sent out to the roaming partner. And then in some sort of parallel flow, they would send us the SGW records in mediation format, really, which is now usually SGW. And in this case, probably will contain some additional fields than the flow for TAP, like RAT type, for example, doesn't exist in TAP, but is needed for BCE. So in any case, we would then convert this to the BCE standard, create, for example, visited network UDR, which we then reconcile with the HUDR that we receive from the third party, and then settlement can take place if there are no discrepancies. So that is basically how I would imagine operators would approach this. But John, so how do you see agents and roaming partners of today evolving to support BCE process?
Yeah, I see BCE as a great opportunity for agents and also operators, specifically talking about Swisscom here, as a great opportunity to update our processes, our information flows, our infrastructure, etc. As the old TAP disappears slowly, runs in parallel, but we're investing in BCE. I see specifically, if we go to the agent conversation, yeah, in this respect, I'm extremely happy that Swisscom took, in the make or buy decision, we decided that we're not going to make it ourselves. That's going to take too much resources, too much time. We're going to buy. And we went to, in this case, Syniverse as DCH, and I've been extremely happy that, first of all, Syniverse has been involved in the whole standardization process, knows everything from the beginning, and has been essentially guiding us through the process and setting up BCE and helping as we set up BCE with our first partners. Inside of Swisscom, I'm by no means a BCE expert. I'm a BCE user. I know the basics. I've been following the standard, but it's been really good to have a DCH, in this case, Syniverse, essentially standing beside me as we go through the implementation inside Swisscom and also with our first partners externally.
Okay, Elira, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, I wanted to just say that also from what we're saying during our standard discussions, as this is a completely new thing for both operators and agents, there's a lot of close cooperation that needs to happen. So it's being built together in a way. Yes. And a lot more feedback between operators and agents connected to that. So TAP is so established that oftentimes, for example, there's little need for an operator to step in some processes that the TAP agents have. But in the BCE case, at least in these first few years, I see a very close cooperation there to build the processes around BCE.
Yeah, that's good you say that, because normally agents, I can say because I have been working for an agent for a long time, we just say, okay, we implement whatever the operators decide. But I think we are kind of beyond that now, because we have experience with that. We know you as operators have ideas, so you want this, that, but we can then step in and say, okay, operationally, this is just not gonna work, and this is why, for example. Then as an agent, we also have to be compliant with all the GSMA standards and processes. So then, of course, it's easy for an operator to say, okay, why bother? If there is an agent who can support me, why not try that? So yeah, it is a close cooperation, and working with this process in particular, I would say it was very rewarding, because both, and at this stage, there are no agents competition or anything like that. I mean, we are testing with, for example, Comphone now, the exchange of the BCE traffic. And basically, we try to do it as fast as possible so that our customers then can go live with that traffic, right? Okay, so I see we have still time for one question, which I always wanted to ask. So how, yeah, Elira, maybe let's start with you. How would you recommend the MNOs that they approach the proposal and implementation of BCE within their own companies? So like looking for tips and tricks here, maybe?
So first, one can look at the key needs, especially in the near future. So if you intend to go into 5G standalone, which most operators do, if you have IoT business, for example, currently, when you look at that type of traffic and those commercial needs, then you immediately can start making a case that you need to transition from TAP to BCE. One thing that everybody in the industry has been mentioning is that it's a bit difficult to make a case in the very short term, but it's clear that in the midterm, the business case is there because the existing processes just don't allow full leverage of the commercial side for the new services. So I would say that if you look at your current processes, for sure you're going to find inefficiencies there that are created because we are based on TAP for a very long time that will be resolved by moving to BCE.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah. John, what's your opinion?
Agree with everything that Elira said, and maybe just add 1 or 2 points will be that yeah, once you've made the decision, once you've got the information in the right place, the PGW, the SUWs, etc., do a test with 1 or 2 trusted partners and make sure it works there first before rolling out. And even more importantly, even with those trusted partners, probably test on a subset of the total data traffic. So in this, for example, Swisscom right now, in our test that we're doing right now, it's not all of our data traffic that's going through BCE. We're essentially testing initially on LTE-M and NB-IoT, make sure it works, so go financial risk. And once we've got that working, roll it out to other things.
Okay, yeah, that was actually a good point with this. We find a partner that is willing to test or is almost ready with the process. So and that would probably speed up the process on the operator's side. So I don't see any questions, so I'll just repeat that if you have any questions, you can type them into the Q&A section of this meeting. But meanwhile, I'll ask the very last question, which would be, John, what challenges have you seen implementing BCE?
Yeah, good question.
If any, because I don't want to.
Well, there's always challenges. So separating into internal and external, getting the PGW and SUW and all the PGW and all the SUW information to the right spot so it could be correctly transferred to, in this case, to Cineverse to DCH. Took a couple iterations on the Swisscom side, so the first implementation took longer than expected, but future ones would take about a month and a half. The other key internal challenge is education. I think I mentioned that before. Everybody needs to learn the basics of BCE, all the acronyms and how it works, the data flows, etc., and the new reports. And the interesting thing that's come out of the tests we've done so far is the kind of the external challenge is that even more so with TAP in BCE, both partners have to have pretty much the exact same understanding of the commercial model and how the commercial model is going to be put into BCE. Because if they don't, then you have different settings on both sides and the reconciliation.
Not reconcile.
So it's a great opportunity for you actually to take this as an opportunity to actually talk with your partners more often. And the first time you set up something, it's going to be a couple of phone calls going back and forth saying, what exactly are you doing on your side? Let me do the exact same on my side, etc. And that's where, again, I'm very happy to say that Cineverse has been standing behind me on a couple of those conversations because I don't myself have the expertise for a lot of those calls, but it's nice to have a trusted partner sitting there helping me in the background. So
yeah, and obviously it is good to finally then agreeing, but it's a good tip. So talk to your partner and say, this is the charging model I want to implement. How do you understand it? Yep. Because yeah, as we found out, it can be interpreted in different ways and it would not reconcile. And it is all because BCE standard is very flexible. And that was the idea from the beginning, but anything flexible can lead to misinterpretations that we learned along the way. So Elira, what do you think? What have been the challenges so far?
Just to address a bit, I think this matter of different interpretations, I think it will be ironed out as we go along and have some more experience already. The subgroups are trying to give recommendations about how certain commercial models should be represented. Exactly. So it's growing pains basically, but I think it will be ironed out. For me, in terms of challenges, so it's everything that John said, and plus changing internal processes in general, because there's a lot of processes around the BCE that will need to be changed, the reporting, the finance. So internally, there needs to be quite cooperation, let's say, between different parts of the process. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, yeah, definitely we have developed a standard which is flexible. But I also have the feeling that operators would like to be told, so, okay, in this case, you do this and this, and it's like an implementation handbook, which we haven't written yet because we don't have experience really. But just 2 weeks ago, we had that discussion about interpretation. So definitely on the known issues list now, right? Okay, so I think we are done. I don't see any questions on the chat, but I would just say that if you have questions, people in the audience, so you can reach out to either Lyra or John directly, and or me for that matter, for the industry-related questions or the Universe service. And I will hand over to George then. Thank you, Lyra, and thank you, John.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Anna. Good morning, good afternoon, or maybe good evening to everybody here. So this is George Lam. I'm the Director of Portfolio Product Development in Cineverse Hong Kong office. So first of all, let me just share my screen. Okay, right. So because of the constraint of time, I will be very quickly, just to very briefly present what Cineverse is doing, how we are addressing a very critical problem statement in the market for the operators. So voice service, as we know today, yes, it's just like IDD is shrinking fast, but it is still a very important part of any roaming services that an operator can offer to their customers, particularly to those enterprise customers. So they still expect to pick up their phone, and instead of using the OTTs or messaging, they will just pick up the phone and call whatever they would need to call, their family or their boss or their staff. So voice service is a very important part of any roaming services. So now in the past, this is done by, handled by circuit switch service. And when 4G came along, 4G is an all IP network. Yes, you can do VOLTE, but there are still a lot of operators that do not support VOLTE. And so GSMA specified a standard called circuit switch fallback. So when a roamer or user, they're trying to make a ordinary voice call from the handset using the native dialer. So it would just fall back to a traditional legacy 2G or 3G circuit switch network to make that voice call. And once that call is finished, then the handset will return to the 4G to benefit from the high-speed data in the 4G network. So this is intended to be a temporary makeshift solutions for the future technology, 5G, 6G, 7G. And it really doesn't make much sense for operators to continue to maintain a circuit switch network just to support that. And then when we have 5G coming along, that we expect starting from next year, when more and more operators will start launching the 5G SA mode roaming, is now start making not a lot of sense for a lot of operators just to maintain a legacy 2G or 3G network just to support CS fallback. The reasons are, there are two main reasons for that. One is the money. To maintain a legacy network, 2G, 3G, just for supporting CS fallback, it costs a lot of money in the site cost, the operation cost, the maintenance cost, and so it just no business case for that. And secondly, is even more important and more impactful is the frequency issues. So with 5G, all these wonderful features like more than 1 gigabps of data speed, eMBB, and network slicing, and supporting 1 million devices within a kilometer's radius of a radio coverage of a base stations. And all this will require a lot of spectrum. And particularly, although there are the millimeter wave frequency available, but those spectrum are doesn't make a lot of sense in business case because it's so high frequency, the coverage is very small. So operators, they would need to scramble whatever frequency they have as low as possible, preferably at the 700 meg, 900 meg, or 2.1. So they need to scramble as much frequency as they possibly can by what everybody is calling frequency refarming. So they need to call this frequency back. So putting both together, so a lot of operators out there in the world are now planning to shut down their legacy 2G and 3G network. The GSMA has been keeping the latest update information or who has made that announcement. But for Cineverse, we have been very closely talking to our customers all over the world. So officially, there are about 60 operators looking to sunset their legacy network in the next 4 or 5 years. Well, of course, the most impactful one is AT&T, who already announced 2022, they will shut down their, well, actually it's 2nd February 2022, they will shut down their 3G network once and for all, regardless. So, and we know there are many more that have made the decision, but they have not officially made any announcement yet. Maybe fearing the impact to their reputations in the market. And actually, there are far more than 60 that we know of. So this trend is definitely coming. And there's no way that operators can avoid, because with all this 5G bandwidth hungry technology all coming along, and the need to save operation costs of maintaining a legacy network. So for sure, this is just going, this is coming, and it's coming fast. So what are the operators doing about it? With the shutdown of this legacy network and without the ability to continue to support CS fallback. And of course, just like anything in the GSMA history, GSMA already has the vision to prepare, to come up with a standard and specifications to facilitate VOLTE roaming. That was back in 2014. So with VOLTE roaming, so basically that allowed operators as a VPMN and HPMN, they don't need to use circuit switch. They would carry all the voice over the IP circuit channel without the customers aware of it, completely transparent. So that was designed to get rid of the need of any circuit switch and legacy network support. But unfortunately, although the first VOLTE roaming, as my president, John McQuaid, said earlier, and that was facilitated by Cineverse back in 2015 between Korea and Japan, the first VOLTE roaming. And now it's 5 years, and apparently the progress has been very, very slow. And 5 years from then on, now there are about only 20 VOLTE roaming commercial in production as of now. It's just not picking up. And I think the reason for that is primarily, one is the IoT concern. IoT means the interoperator tariff, not the M2M thing. So IoT is one of the major concerns of some of the network operators. And secondly is the support of device in VOLTE roaming. So, but although it has not made much progress in the last 5 years, but we see this is picking up again because everybody now realize, oh dear, I need to shut down my 3G network. I can't afford to lose my inbound roaming capabilities. So what are the options? Of course, the most classical, the most standard way to do it is to scramble for VoLTE roaming with your roaming partners. But there's a catch. Majority, there are about 700 GSM operators in the world that has launched roaming. And the very typical operator would have about 600 roaming relationship. And you want to launch VoLTE roaming for all your 600 roaming partners, that will take years. It will be a very long time to do that. I mean, just like today, if you just cite the experience, the LTE, the first commercial LTE roaming was launched between CSL Hong Kong and SK Telecom in Korea. That was back in 2012, 8 years ago. And as of today, there are still many operators who have not yet complete their LTE roaming as of now. And VoLTE roaming is more complicated than LTE roaming. So it would just physically, it would just take a long time. And I will cite the same example with AT&T. Imagine all their 600 roaming partners knocking on their door, asking for VoLTE roaming, Iraq and Tardic. It would take them, they would just physically would not have the resources to do that. So that exists a huge gap from when all the VoLTE roaming are available and operators are shutting down their legacy network. So it's during this period of gap that Cineverse is proposing a solutions to help operators to bridge this gap. So I'm sure you are aware what would be the problem for an operator to lose their inbound capabilities. Of course, one is you lose the inbound revenue because you will never be able to catch up with for all the VoLTE roaming with all your roaming partners. You will lose your inbound revenue, and depends on the case of the operators. Even more impactful is you will lose your ability to negotiate your IoT for your outbound customers. So there's a good chance that your outbound IoT will go up. So that means is that will impact your customers and your existing outbound retail roaming plan. So these two would be the most critical and obvious impact of that ability. And of course, you will also lose your status without the ability of offering inbound to your roaming partners. And even on the VoLTE side, and as far as we know, in fact, it's not every operators they have launched domestically, they have launched VoLTE. There are still a lot more, about 500 of them, that they have no plan to put in a costly IMS system yet. But of course, with 5G coming along, this is something that operators would need to think about. So what is Cineverse proposing is to bridge the gap during the time that a particular VPN have shut down their legacy network, but still need time to open up their VoLTE roaming agreement with all the 600 or 700 roaming partners. So if you look at this diagram here on the right-hand side, so we are proposing that we will develop a interworking function on the hub to bridge between the visitor operator and their home operators. Now, this interworking function or this hub is for the VPMN, right? So we will act as a middle. So for the VPMN, they will see all their inbound as a VOLTE roaming function. But to all their roaming partners, because they don't have the ability or the time to launch VOLTE roaming with this particular VPMN, for all these home operators, they will see the service as a ordinary traditional circuit switch fallback, a ordinary 2G or 3G roaming, right? So they don't have to do anything to continue the service. All the work is done by the VPMN and Cineverse sitting in the middle. And we will be hiding all the VOLTE informations from the home operator. And we will be hiding all the legacy circuit switch, all the 3G stuff, SS7, from the visited operator. So to the VPMN is all 100% VOLTE roaming. For the home operator, their roaming partners, these are all legacy 3G, 2G roaming. So this is the scope of that. But this is by no means a simple platform. It is a very complicated platform, which Cineverse is building at the moment. And what we differentiate ourselves, because we have been working with TAP for 3 decades and per second, per minute, no duration-based charging. Right. But for VOLTE roaming, this is all megabyte per packet-based charging. And to hide all these details from the home operator, we are sitting in the middle. We can also be able to handle all this exchange of call records, tap records, convert them from a packet base to a duration base. So the home operators, they don't have to do anything or any change to the billing system. And this is a big differentiation of what Cineverse can offer in this type of solutions. All right. Okay. So I think now this, for me to explain things in detail, it will take me about at least an hour, but because of time constraint. So if any of the attendees on this call, they would like to find out more information, I would be more than happy to have a more detailed discussions with them. So please feel free to approach anybody that you know in Cineverse, most appropriately, our sales guy in your particular region. Get on the call with them, send them an email, and then we can arrange a Zoom sessions so that I can take you through these solutions in more details. Right.
Okay, thanks very much. Sorry, George, we're running out of time. I see that a couple of questions have appeared. If I can interrupt and maybe ask Anna if she can see the questions and see if there's any quick answer.
Yeah, I was just typing, so I have 2 more to go, which I may finish within the 3 minutes that we have remaining.
But if I just make the point, it was very interesting. John told us how long it will take, and Elira told us, you know, not everything at the same time. And I think the diversity of roaming partners will be a challenge for everyone. So I think certainly Cineverse fits in to make one size fits all for all of the operators. So I hand it back to you, Anna, for any last comments.
Okay, thank you, David. I think it was quite a fruitful session for us, and I saw there were quite many attendees. And yeah, I mean, there's no way around BCE. If you need tips and tricks, if you think you're ready, but just need the push or some arguments to make the business case internally, please do not hesitate to reach out to me or John or Alira, who were taking part in this session today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Anna. Just to let you know, I believe we hit 100 different views, or over 100. So I think that's a personal best. So I look forward to hearing more, because it's certainly very interesting. And George is telling everyone the clock is ticking, and I think you need to pay attention. So I think your phone's going to be ringing, George. So
looking forward to it.
With that, I think we'll sum up, and thank you very much to the Cineverse guys, and I look forward to hear from you again. And so all the best, and thank you for attending Thrive, everyone, and look forward to seeing you in the next sessions.
Thank you for moderating, David.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you much.
Bye.
Bye.